Hello everybody, thanks for tuning into the show. Today we're talking suicidal thinking and depression. Let's get through it together. My name's Chris Sutton, this is Mental Conversations.
I'm unsure I can be so absent-minded.
Boom, and we're live. I'm sat looking at the smiley face of Viv Buckton with a beautiful scenic background on your Zoom call. Welcome back, Viv.
Thanks very much, Chris. Nice to speak to you again.
So we're on number 3 of our, I think, going to be 8-part series. And this one might get a bit tricky. This one might be a bit kind of might sad in moments, but as always, we'll try and keep it as light-hearted as we can around some difficult subjects. So we're going to talk about depression and suicidal thinking a little bit today. Sound like fun?
It's not striking me as the lightest topic ever, but it's a really important one because a lot more people experience depression and suicidal feelings than say so.
Yes, yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's good to talk about it and know that it's all right to talk.
And you know what? That's a really key point, because I do think that being able to talk about it. So people that listen to this podcast regularly will know that I have experience of depression and of suicidal thoughts. So we'll call on those kind of experiences quite a lot over the next half an hour or so. But it is, and the whole point of this podcast is being open about mental health. So talking about something that is, difficult. It's good. It's not something that we should shy away from talking about. So I'm really happy, and I feel very safe talking to someone like you, mentor, guru, that's going to be gentle with me. Just precursor to that.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to be gentle with you today? Okay, I'll try and remember that.
So it may be that usually on this podcast, I'll have a guest and I'll ask lots of questions as we go through, but it may feel like a bit of role reversal to people listening.
We're going for a bit of a role reversal today, aren't we?
So we'll see how it goes. But the one thing I want to just state at the beginning is, some people will suffer with clinical depression, and what I'm talking about today and my own experiences is around people or myself finding myself in a situation where you're feeling really down and feeling like there's no way out. So it's not necessarily like a chemical imbalance or something like that. It's more kind of situational, I'd say. Does that sound fair enough?
That does sound fair enough. Yes, I think by listening to the podcast, people can hear about your lived experience of what it felt like at that time, and also how you moved on from where you were into another place. I know that when people are feeling down and suicidal, there's a sense there is no way out. And actually your lived proofs that there is a way out, more than one way. But we're going to talk about your experience and how it felt to you. So how did it feel when you were at your lowest, Chris?
I think you've used the words there about feeling like there's no way out, and I think that when I went through the experience I went through of feeling suicidal or having thoughts about suicide was that I couldn't see where I could go, and everything I was doing every day, no matter how big or small, I felt like I was failing at it. So something silly would go wrong and forget to put the bin out or something on bin day, and it would just feel like a catastrophe. It would feel like, oh, well, what a surprise, I've done that wrong. So I would just be heaping on more onto this pile of crap of how I was feeling. And I couldn't see a way forward at all. It was just like, this is just the way it's going to be.
On top of the feelings, what was that voice in your head saying to you about yourself? What language were you using to you about yourself?
Some of the most powerful language was actually, I felt like it was better for other people, like it was better for everyone if I wasn't here. That was they were the kind of words that were going around in my head quite a lot. Was if I wasn't here, people wouldn't have to deal with me messing this up. People wouldn't have to deal with me, and at the time, I had a small child, and I was like, she's gonna grow up, and and will pick up on all of these mannerisms and thought processes and things. She's going to learn them from me, and why would I want her to grow up like this? Because ultimately, and this is the real kind of key bit I think about the feelings as well, is I just felt like I was in pain all the time, and the pain
Yeah.
was everywhere. It felt like I was on fire. In fact, because I can feel the kind of energy in my hands as I'm talking about this. I'm a bit weird like that, but I can actually feel it. But it was such an uncomfortable sensation that it was like there's got to be just a way out of this, and a way out of it for me was thinking, well, I'll just switch it off. That's got to be the easiest way for everyone.
Did that feel like it was the easiest way? Was that did it feel at that time like that was the easiest way out of how you were feeling?
Yes, it did, because I actually couldn't see, now I talk quite a lot about, say, if you're trying to get to the top of a flight of stairs, you've got to take the first step first. You can't
Mm,
get bound up the last 3 or 4 steps without doing the first ones. And maybe we'll talk about that a bit more later. But I couldn't find the staircase. I couldn't even find the staircase. So it was like, well, what
yeah,
is that first step? There doesn't seem to be a first step. There only seems to be backwards or down. There doesn't seem to be a forwards. It just, everything there points towards like darkness and more misery and more kind of
yeah. There is
stress.
no light at the end of the tunnel. There is
Yeah,
only tunnel. Yeah,
exactly. And that feeling when you're just essentially kind of, feeling around in the dark the whole time. And the other thing is with it is it's scary, because you're
yeah,
just like everything feels like it's perhaps bigger than it is. Like I said, you catastrophize, you look at something and think, oh
yeah.
well, and I think also it's that kind of magnet thing, or it's actually that exercise that you've done with me before, where you kind of, if you like scan a room and you look at certain color, you kind of tell your mind, look for things that are green just in your
Yeah.
peripheral vision, and then pop, all these things pop out, and then you change the color and pop, all those colors pop out. Well, that kind of magnet that I was putting out there was towards shit. It was like
Yeah.
I'm just looking for all the crap to come my way. So of course you find it and you see it.
Yeah.
And
Yes, you feel crap. You can only see crap everywhere that you look. There is no positive.
Yeah, and then so it's no matter how hard you try, it's a bit like quicksand kind of thing. You can't pull yourself out.
And I'm guessing that well-meaning people will have said things to you like, "Oh, just snap out of it," or "Look on the positive side," or all of those things that people helpfully say. How did those things feel at the time?
I think I use them as more like I took them as a criticism. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's an awareness now. Other people are noticing my behavior is different, and there's something there's something going on, and I didn't want people to notice. I wasn't trying to put out a kind of, or I did.
Mm,
I certainly consciously wasn't trying to put out a cry for help. So, I remember very clearly of one of my best friends coming to stay, and he said to me, you know, I've been here for like 2 days, and you've barely been here. You've always been running around in the kitchen doing something and saying you're doing things, so that I've got a comfortable stay. He goes, but I want to
yeah.
spend time with you, mate. Like, and you're just not here.
Yeah.
You're like, oh God, we haven't got that. I'll nip to the shop, and it was like, he said, your behavior is so different. And it really shocked me that, because I didn't know. It's like I didn't know that other people could see it.
Yes, you can't see how you're behaving. No, other people can see that much more clearly than you.
Yeah. So I was just like, well, that, and certainly, of course, from someone I trust and I've known for so many years, bringing that up to me, I was like, what do you mean you can see this? I thought this was something I'm hiding, and it's something that's just going on inside me, kind of thing. So that was really stark, and quite difficult to then know how to behave, because it was like, well, do you try to hide it even better? And I'll tell you the one thing that was really interesting when I look back at it now is I don't think I ever thought, I don't think I ever had the thought, what can I do to make it better? where can I go for help? And that's the key point. And it
Right.
never even occurred to me to look for help. I just thought this is something I'm doing all alone and I can't do it, and
That's really interesting.
and then, when once I had moved forward a little bit, which I'm sure we'll get to, I couldn't have been more wrong in thinking that there was no help there, that there was nowhere, there was nowhere to go.
So what did prompt the change? What was that catalyst that
Well, again, regular
made you
listeners all know
make the first
this,
step?
but people from the organization we work for that are listening to this as part of the series perhaps maybe won't. But I mentioned earlier that Isla, my daughter, I think she was one or maybe even less than one at the time. She's certainly like a baby, and I remember I remember looking at her, and I remember either seeing or hearing the word dad, and I remember thinking, wow, every time this little girl hears the word dad or reads the word dad in a book or something, she's going to think, oh, well, my dad took his own life. And I know, and that might be really painful for some people listening to listen to. So I'm sorry if this is a difficult thing for people to hear, but
Yeah.
this was just my personal experience of it, and I just thought I can't do that. I was like, I can't do that to this little girl. And it was a really weird, it was like a life-changing moment for me that I've thought about it a lot, in that I was like, oh, I I can't, that's not an option. That and
That's really
maybe,
interesting that you finally found something that's not an option. In all
yeah,
the darkness, there's one thing that is just too dark and can't be allowed.
yeah, and I mean, it's possible that maybe, and I say this in hindsight, maybe I was looking for a catalyst. Maybe, I was looking for to change my mindset somehow, but I don't. That's certainly not my memory of it. My memory of it was very clearly thinking, oh my God, that's not an option. Well, if that's not an option, then, well, I better start doing something about it because I can't live like this. And
Yeah.
that's when I started kind of trying to look around for what a step forward was. And bizarrely, and she might listen to this when she's older. So hello, older Isla. But bizarrely, it's, and this is where I might get emotional, but
Mm.
she's had this, and this, it's a bit of an aside, but Isla, my daughter, has had this impact on me in multiple occasions now during she's only 7. She has this knack that if I'm feeling down or have something that's going wrong, of just coming and saying something or holding my hand, or so she's a very kind of magical person in my life. And I know, Dad's going to say that about the little girls, but she seems to have this, just building this track record of kind of like helping pull me out of dark places and things. It's an amazing thing to have in your life. But yeah, I'm off.
Certainly a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
So once you had that moment where you realized something wasn't an option, something was too dark to contemplate, what was the first step you took?
Well, I think so. I talked to my partner at the time about it a lot, and she was really helpful and really kind of, and was very, very supportive, and helped me to, I told her how I was feeling, and um, and essentially she helped support me to go to the GP about it. And I remember, interestingly, going to the GP and thinking, oh God, this is so heavy. This is such big stuff. This
Yeah.
is such kind of like, I'm going to go in there, and I remember I was like close to tears in telling them. But now when I look back at it, I mean, it's not funny, but GPs deal with that all the time. GPs deal with
They're
people
used
coming
to
in.
hearing it. It
They
might
used
have
to,
been your first experience, but they're used to hearing it, aren't they?
so I remember sitting in the waiting room, like
Mm.
my heart pounding out my chest, and then going in and them going like, right, yep, yep, Mr. Sutton, yeah, nice to see you. What is it? How can I help? What's wrong? And I was like, oh, and I started to split talking about
Mm.
my feelings and that, and it was very much like, um, okay, well, we need to get you some support. So they offered me some medication to begin with, and also they put me on like a waiting list for some
Yeah.
talking therapy. Um, so and even that in itself, I came out of there feeling lighter, feeling like, okay, that went all right, and now I've got a prescription for some medication, and I've got, and then I'm a bit hazy actually with my memory of how things happened, if I'm honest. But certainly over the period that followed, I then had, quite a significant amount of time off work. Had like 4 or 5 months off work. Um, and I remember essentially being prescribed, go and do things that you find fun, go and do
Yeah.
things that you like doing, which felt really kind of difficult for me because I was like, well, I like playing golf, I like doing yoga, and the doctor was like, go and do that, just go and do that. But I'm like on the golf course on a Tuesday morning, knowing that people are at work and I'm getting
Yeah.
paid,
So there's that feeling of
and I'm
guilt that
thinking,
sneaks in. Yeah.
yeah, and we know, I have a
Yeah.
very strong relationship with guilt.
Mm.
So that kind of it was very, very helpful, but there were some real challenges even with that.
Yeah.
I was like, it's quite tainted to go and just go to a yoga class on a random Wednesday afternoon. Um,
How did it feel to be on the medication? What was that like for you?
the medication was an interesting trip because it was not that kind of trip. It wasn't that kind of drugs.
Not that sort of medication.
But it was. It takes a while for antidepressants to kick in. We can be talking weeks, or this is my experience of it. Um, and and also it took probably 8 or 9 months before I was on a medication that didn't give me side effects of stomach
Right.
cramps, and
Mm.
I remember having like a really sore stomach and diarrhea, and feeling
Yeah.
really nauseous like a lot of the time. So
Hmm.
so I remember going through. I can't even remember the names of which ones they were, but it took me a while. But once I was on the one that was right for me, if you like, um, it's it was numbing is the way I can describe it. And I
Right.
think so doctors had explained it to me or talked to me about it at the time, and now since I didn't realize it was numbing me down. It was
Mm.
numbing,
Yeah.
but until I came off medication a few years later, I didn't actually
Right.
realize that. But when I look back, I didn't experience the lows as much, but I didn't
Yeah.
ex- or not but and I didn't experience the highs as much. Um,
So
so
my understanding of the antidepressants is that is what they do. They even out the peaks and troughs so that it's just a level, and so it can feel flat because in a sense it is. It's taken out the hills and the valleys of
yeah,
the feelings. So whilst it's good to take out the valleys and the dark points, it also takes the highs of
well,
joy and
yeah,
positive experiences away as well, does it?
and I have, yeah, and that's exactly it. And at the time, I didn't really notice that. And I think at the time also, I would have accepted that. I would have welcomed that
Mm.
in terms of
Yeah.
get rid of some of the highs. That's fine if as long as you get rid of those horrible, horrible
Yes. Yeah.
lows.
Yeah. Because it's a
So
step forward.
it's a trade-off. But the but
Yeah.
the but
Absolutely.
the but the story I guess that explains it best is, years later when I came off and I decided I wanted to come off antidepressants,
Yeah.
and I found myself. This is a fun story. I found myself lying in the fetal position on the kitchen floor, crying my eyes out one evening,
Oh, okay.
and and I and then and it was just about life, just everything, just
Yeah.
everything that was going on. And then the next night, I remember very clearly it was Gogglebox, and I still love Gogglebox to this day. I was
Mm.
howling with laughter. I was absolutely howling with laughter, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, this is because I'm not on the antidepressants. I've, I'm having these swings
Yeah.
again. I'm experiencing the swings." But by that time, thankfully, I'd put some other things in place, or I was starting to put things in place that were kind of a substitute or what's worked for me instead of
Yeah.
medication. So those kind of lows became more and more further apart. And now, to be honest, I haven't had one for I don't know, maybe years, maybe 2 years or something.
Yeah.
Like so So it was, and yet the highs I have all the time. I can
which is brilliant news. That's
reach
what you
those
want, isn't
highs.
it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of about that, and I suppose that's what the main thrust of what we wanted this episode of the podcast to be about, was that there is a future and that there is a light at the end of that tunnel, and actually the first step on that, even if you don't realize it, and yes, I'm talking to people directly, is to reach out for help, either by going to your GP or talking to someone you trust, or talking to the Samaritans, or talking to, just
Yeah.
reach out to somebody, and have a conversation and start just inching forwards a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got experience of antidepressants, but not for depression, interestingly, because they use antidepressants for loads of things. And I was prescribed some for pain management.
Mm,
And I suppose I noticed the effects of them more because I wasn't depressed. That's not what they were there for. So I understand that feeling of flat.
mm,
And I gave them back to the doctor very quickly and said, "Thank you very much. You'll have to give me something else. This isn't going to do it for me. I don't want to feel flat. That's not who I am." But what they were was a means of dealing with something for a short space of time. And I guess as that first step out of feeling there is no way out,
mm.
a combination of the medication to take off the troughs, the lows,
Yeah.
and then the talking therapy to take you somewhere else
Yeah.
allows you to have to say have that journey through the medication while it's the thing that's the right thing at that time
And yeah, and I and
into a
I
better place. Is that right? Is that how
yeah,
you were?
I think so, because for me, I have an interesting relationship with my own thoughts about medication, in that, when I think about my own experience, I think that was the right thing to do, because it is, but this is interesting even as I'm thinking about it. So I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I, you know, when you hear the kind of stereotype of, people, you go to the doctor and you can get prescribed straight away just by saying you feel a bit down, and actually, you should be looking at how much exercise are you doing, what are your
Mm.
relationships with people like, what's your relationship like with food, is there anything you can do to change that, are you connecting with people, are you helping others, and all these kind of 5 ways to well-being type stuff, you know, but that's quite a longer term. That's a long, you
It
can,
takes time.
whereas
Yeah.
the medication can work quicker than that, and it's especially if you're feeling those really low lows, and like we say, it can flatten, it can, make it more, you become flat, but flat's better than those lows, better than the troughs. So I kind of, so for me, I think doing that, being on that medication, was a good thing. But I started eventually thinking, well, I think it's, the situation I put myself in my own life and in my own head was where I was really struggling. And I started changing those things, and I started trying to change my own. And next week will be exciting, actually, but next month, sorry, when we do our podcast, because I'm going to talk about the Demon Slayer, who's who's the therapist who kind of really helped me, um, and how my thought processes started to change, and how I started to challenge some of the really
Yeah.
negative thoughts I was having. So once that happened, and like I say, we'll get into that more next month, but the I thought, well, I want to do it without the medication then. And the
Yeah.
one thing I would like to just say about the medication is, I found, and again, like I said, I think in situation, depending on the situation, it's a very positive thing for people to do. It's a really good step. But for me, coming off the medication was hellish. It was absolutely awful. And when I went I went right up to, I think it was sertraline I was taking at the time, and forgive me if I get these names or measurements wrong, but like dosages wrong. But I think I was up to kind of the almost the max, which was 200 um, milligrams or whatever it was. And I took it down really slowly over a period of months and got it right down to 50, and then right down to 25, I think. And the doctor said, look, if you're on 25, that's nothing. You're basically on nothing.
Yeah.
But even then, when I stopped taking it, even that tiny little
Mm.
dosage, the withdrawal symptoms were horrible. I hated it. And it was like having a electric shock in my head, right in my
Yeah.
brain. And it wasn't just like once an hour or something. It was all the time. It was really
Mm.
horrible. But the last, but when I did, and that had happened to me previously between medications. You have to wean off one before going on to the
Yeah.
next. And I'd always had that as being the side effect that really kicked me down the worst kind of thing. But the last time I remember getting through it mentally, I remember the thing I kept thinking was every time I had one of these buzzes in my head, I was like, right, that's one I'm never going to have again. Because I was
Yeah.
in
It's
that
one more step.
mindset. I
It's
was
one
in
more
that
step.
mindset,
Yeah.
right, if I've got to do 100 of these or 1,000 of these, that's one done. I'm not doing that one again. So that,
Yeah.
but you have to be very mentally, in a really mentally right state of mind before you come off the medication, is what I'd say.
The thing about the medication is people will stay on it for different lengths of time. And the longer you're on any form of medication, the more your body adjusts to being used to getting it. And so coming off it will vary for all sorts of people in all sorts of ways, but also on the length of time that you've been taking it. So if someone's wanting to move out of feeling those feelings of depression or those suicidal feelings, feeling there's no other route out, and are afraid of medication as an interim step to flatten out the troughs while
Mm,
you seek other help. Um, I want to take this to a slightly different place, if I might, Chris. In a leadership role, I spend a lot of time talking to people about a coaching approach.
mm,
So managers will say to me, people come to me all the time for the answer. And I said, what do you keep giving it to them for then? Forever you give them the answer, they're going to come to you for that. And I hear that it's taking all the time. You have to invest first. So what you do is you coach, you encourage them and help them to find their own answers.
mm.
So talking, not just talking therapy, but talking positively, talking in the right way. And I think maybe this is the Demon Slayer session next time. Um, is there a proactive approach that people can take before they get down to that bottom level, do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I just, yes, I think so, because I do think that once you, like I went, I mean, nuclear on it and have told everyone now, like I now have got this podcast, for goodness
Yeah,
sake, like, so for me, the kind of the openness is like a weight off your shoulders.
yeah.
Um, so if you are starting to struggle, and there's a campaign at the moment that I've heard where people say, ask your friend, how you doing, mate? You're right. And if your friend
Yeah.
goes, yeah, yeah, I'm fine, go, yeah, yeah, but ask them again.
But how
No,
are
but
you?
how
Yeah.
are you? How
Oh,
are
ask
you?
twice. Yeah.
Exactly that. So that you know that opening up a conversation for someone to just go, no, actually, I'm really struggling. That
Mm,
adage of kind of a problem shared is a problem halved. It can that can actually be really true, and it can, if you can talk to someone. And the more I kind of, or the older and wiser I get, he says laughing, is communication is the key to so many things. And
yeah.
so part of the problems that I was having was not being able to communicate properly with the people around me. So then not actually getting my own needs met because I wasn't
Mm,
communicating very well. So actually, even if you're feeling mentally well, communication is still very important to be able to establish relationships, to be able to have friendships, to be able to kind of um, unload some of the pressures that you're feeling with people. So I do think that talking is huge.
So how else do you look after yourself now? Is that how you look after yourself now?
Well, now, so one of the biggest ways that I look after myself now, and one of the ways, I don't want to embarrass you, but one of the ways that you've been instrumental in my life is helping me to find my own voice and helping me to be um, generally to be assertive, I suppose, and to not to kind of, I don't always get my own way with everything, but I'm not afraid anymore to say what I want out of a certain situation. Whereas for most of my life, I've always been kind of deferred to what might someone else want to do, and then resented the fact that I've not been able to do something I wanted to do when I hadn't even told them I wanted to do it. It's kind of
Yeah.
so. So for me now, I've realized that so much of the power of my own well-being is actually just trying to be myself with, no, actually, I'd like to do this. So that's a huge step. But the other thing for me, and again, like I said, with the um, almost like as a replacement or an alternative or a complement to medication, is exercise. I've
Yeah.
realized there is a massive correlation for me, and I'm not talking about everyone has to go and run a marathon. I don't run marathons,
Mm.
um, but there's a big correlation with me between on even from day to day. If I've done no exercise and then I don't sleep as well, I don't feel as good in my body. I definitely don't feel as good mentally. I actually feel more tired if I've not done exercise. I feel more lethargic. So that's a huge one. And then I've always been, you know, have not had the best diet. I've always just reached out for easy, cheap kind of package deal type foods. And now, but now I'll have them as kind of like treat meals. And then even when I have them, even when like if I have like a night
Junk
on
as a
my own,
treat. Excellent.
if I have a night on my own, I'll have chicken Kiev and chips, guaranteed. Like, and sometimes I'll have two, like because I'm just like, this is what I used to do. Like, this is
And
like,
then you feel
and then
bad,
yeah,
don't
and then
you?
I'm
You
like,
sleep worse and
wow,
you feel bad in the morning.
yeah, or I'll eat loads of sweets
Mm.
and then I don't sleep at all because I'm buzzing with sugar. And I'm like, wow, I used to do this
Uh,
all the time. And now,
mm.
but so now I'm kind of like, I don't know, I want to get this tattoo on me. I think I'm going to do it one day. I think it was Oscar Wilde that said it, everything in moderation, including moderation. Like, so every now and then, go wild, let your hair down, go wild. But like literally Oscar. But I love that. So for me now, that is a real adage in my life is, look, just don't go crazy. You don't have to have that extra beer or glass of wine. You don't have to have the whole bag of sweets or the whole bar of chocolate. You know, try to savor it a bit more and have one at a time. And in fact, I heard my other half say the other day, my daughter asked her if she was full after eating. She said, "I'm still hungry after dinner." And then she had something for dessert. And she went, "Are you full
Yeah.
yet?" And she said, "I'm not." Her exact words, which is funny to a 7-year-old, she went, "I'm not full yet, but I'm waiting for the signal to hit my brain that I am." So it's just that kind of like, if you keep cramming it in, you can keep cramming it in and think, yeah, I'm still hungry. But then you go, oh, I'm so full. If you just wait 20 minutes, then you go, actually, no, I feel all right.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah,
so,
time is key when you're eating. You've got to wait for those signals. And it's not the only signal that goes from your gut to your brain either. There's lots and lots and lots of them. So whilst you said, exercise for you, actually it's exercise for everybody. Everybody's own version of exercise, but anybody who goes to the gym or exercises regularly notices the positive feelings. And the body and the mind are intrinsically connected. There is no
yeah,
separation. So what you do to your body affects your mind and vice versa.
exactly. So I can't stress that enough, that whole kind of like, and again, what you put into your body, that impacts on it. So, if that impacts you physically, it impacts you mentally. So it's a little bit, I don't want to get too like esoteric about it, but this body and this is your vehicle that's carrying you through life. So much of the way, you can tell, I mean, don't look at my car, but like you could tell like how someone looks after their car, some people like will polish it and will clean the interior and make sure has a regular service and everything else. You need to kind of be doing that same thing with yourself, with your body and your mind, because this is just the vehicle trying to get you through. Well, if you just put the wrong petrol in it, it's not going to run, is it? So
Not well, no.
we've actually run out of time, but I hope that's been really helpful to people, and I just a massive thank you, Viv, for being gentle with me. I really appreciate it. I think we've got through quite a lot there.
I think it's so powerful for people to hear that however you feel you can't get out of where you are, there is more than one route. When you have feelings that are suicidal, I get that. They're
Yeah,
real and they're true and they're huge and they overpower everything. And there's still another way out.
yeah,
And that you've shown that and you've proved that. And actually it's great to have that lived experience for other people to hear at times when they're down, or times when they want to know, well, what more else can I do? Well,
Yeah.
I suppose listen to the next 4 or 5 of these
Yeah,
for the rest
absolutely.
of the journey.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Viv. And as you've just said, next month, the Demon Slayer. I'll tell you
Looking
all
forward to
about
it.
her. She's a powerful lady. But look, I just wanted to say one other thing before I go. If you are feeling like that, if you are feeling down, and certainly if you're feeling suicidal, don't do it. Just reach out to somebody, call the Samaritans. Just reach out to somebody, because I promise you, there's another version of yourself that you can find if you look in the right places. Thanks for listening, everyone. Another episode will be winging its way to you soon.